If you've been following the national headlines, you've probably seen mixed messages about what's happening in the real estate and housing market. Home prices in many parts of the country are starting to soften, and inventory is starting to tick up. And buyers are starting to slowly gain more negotiating power. But here in the Raleigh, North Carolina area and what we call the Triangle, we're seeing a little bit of a different story. Hi, I'm Trish Day with Day Realty Group, and welcome back to my channel where I focus on luxury homes. That means here in our market, homes over $750,000. And today I'm bringing you the latest market update for July 2025. I'm going to be sharing the market data like I do in every one of my monthly market updates for Cary, Apex, Holly Springs, and Raleigh. And I'm going to break down those numbers just like I do to see where we're seeing the biggest shifts. Now, we are seeing somewhat of a shift here, but not like some other parts of the country is experiencing. And you'll see that when we start looking at the numbers. All right, let's take a dive into what happened last month here in the Triangle. Okay, let's get started with Apex, where the market's really starting to heat up there. We saw a median home price of $923,830. And that's up year over year 5.5%. And when we look at the month over month, it increased 2.8. So when we compare July to June, it went up 2.8%. So we see an increase there in median home price. Even as the national home market is softening, we're still seeing a price increase in Apex, and those homes are still gaining value. There were about 52 closed sales in July, and that's up about 15% over last year, but slightly down over June, which was 1.9% down from June. But the big headliner here in Apex is days on the market, which is down to just 4 days. That's a 30% drop from last year and 50% less than 1 month ago in June. But on the flip side, inventory is trending up. There is 118 homes currently on that market, and that is up about 136% over last year and up 34% over last month. And so that has caused the months of supply to go up about 30% over last year. It's hovering right around 2.2 months of supply, so still very low, still considered a seller's market in Apex, even though that is up. And then when we look at months of supply, it has gone up 90% compared to June. So trending up a little bit, but still very low considering everything else we're seeing in the country. Next up, let's take a look at Cary, where the median home price hit over 1 million. So we're at 1,011,493, and that's just up slightly over last year, 0.2%. And that is up also from June's numbers, and that is up 2.6% over June's numbers. Closed sales is also up in Cary, and that's up 106%. And that is 66 homes did close in Cary over that $750,000 threshold. So definitely more sales this year than last year, which was considered to be a slow year, but is also down 8.3% over June's closed sales. So down just slightly from last month. But here's where Cary's standing out. Days on the market climbed to 13 days, and that's up about 108% over last year's number. And it is also up about 78% over June's numbers. So days on market is increasing in Cary. So homes are taking a little longer to sell in Cary, but they're still moving. Inventory is up to about 145 active homes, and that was an increase of 57% over last year and 18% over June. And then finally, when we look at months of supply in Cary, it's 2.1 months, and that's down about 24% over last year and up 24% over June. So what does this tell us? Cary is starting to show some signs of a soft shift towards more of a balanced market, where prices are still steady and buyers are still taking their time to look. In fact, we're seeing, when we looked at what happens over the weekends at open houses, we are getting a lot of activity on open houses, especially first weekend on the market. However, buyers are very picky. They're making sure that they're making the right decisions. They're taking longer to make those decisions. And I think that's why we're starting to see sometimes if a home is not in its best condition, or maybe it's priced a little higher than it should be, it is taking a little bit longer to sell. But the homes that are priced right and in great condition, as I've said in previous videos, those are the ones that are selling very fast. Now let's take a look at Holly Springs, which is one of the smaller markets that we look at, but it's still very active and it's still growing tremendously. When we look at median home price in Holly Springs, the median home price was $880,000, which is up about 1.8% over last year, down slightly over June's numbers, down about 2.2%. Closed sales jumped to 28 closed sales, so that was up about 33% over last year and up 40%. So it's nice to see that closed sales in most of our markets that we're looking at today are having increases over last year and even last month. And what that tells us is that buyers are still buying. It may take a little bit longer for them to go under contract just because they are searching a little bit more. They're definitely taking their time, but they are closing. And that's a lot of movement, especially when we're looking at this price point, the $750,000 and above. I think that indicates a very strong market still in our area, that we're seeing closed sales increase year over year, especially at the higher price points. Days on market doubled over last month. We're sitting about 9 days on market, and we are down about 47% over last year. So days on market, if you look at year over year, is decreasing. And like I said, it did go up over last month, but still 9 days on market is still a relatively good statistic. Inventory for the luxury market in Holly Springs is sitting at 55 homes, and that's up about 66% over last year, and then just slightly up over last month at 1.9%. Finally, when we look at months of supply, Holly Springs also has about a 2-month supply. It's 2.0 to be precise, and that's up about 36% over last year and down 27% over last month. So overall, we're seeing that the months of supply is still very low in the suburbs of Raleigh, Cary, Apex, and Holly Springs. Under 3 months, again, is still considered a seller's market. In Holly Springs, homes are moving. Inventory is growing slightly, but again, well-priced listings are getting solid attention. So now let's wrap up and look at what's happening in Raleigh, which has a little bit of a different picture. The median home price sale in Raleigh was $995,000, and that is down year over year about 11.5% and down slightly 0.4% month over month. So Raleigh is one of the only 4 towns that I'm talking about today that actually saw a annual price decline in the luxury segment. With that said, closed sales were strong in Raleigh with 155 homes sold, and that's up about 13% over last year and then slightly up month over month. Inventory does remain a little high with 528 houses on the market, and months of supply is also hovering above where everyone else was today, and that's sitting at 3.4 months of supply. Closed sales were strong in Raleigh with 155 homes selling, and that's up about 13% year over year and slightly up over the month of June. Inventory does remain fairly high in Raleigh with 528 homes currently on the market in the luxury segment. And with that, Raleigh is experiencing a little bit more of a higher months of supply. We're seeing 3.4 months, so that's over that 3-month mark. It's starting to edge a little bit closer to a buyer's market, or I should say to a balanced market, which is 4 to 6 months of supply gives us more of a balanced market. And so that's a lot higher than the other luxury markets that we talked about today. And what we're seeing in the Raleigh luxury market is a little bit more in line for what we're seeing nationally, with a little bit more inventory. So there's more negotiation room and a little bit more pulling back on pricing. And now just to zoom out a little bit for what's happening nationally, according to the National Association of Realtors, luxury markets across the U.S. are starting to normalize and buyers are being more selective. Many areas are starting to see those price adjustments like we are here, and they are starting to see more days on the market. And in some cities, it's a shift from a seller's market to a buyer's market, and sometimes that happens almost overnight. But here in the Triangle, we're holding stronger than most other parts of the country. Apex and Cary are still posting price gains. Inventory is rising, which is good news for buyers, and homes that are priced well and they're staged and they're in great condition, those are moving very quickly. So whether you're buying or selling in a market really does require buyer strategy. I've talked about this before. The days of throwing a sign in the yard and getting 5 offers, those days are behind us. And honestly, that's a good thing. If you're looking to buy or sell a home in the luxury market here in Raleigh and the surrounding suburbs, such as Cary, Apex, Holly Springs, and really just throughout the triangle, feel free to reach out. You can schedule a call via my website, Dare Realty Group, and the link will be in the chat below, and you can click on that link and get to my calendar and schedule a call with me, or feel free to reach out. My cell phone and my email are on the screen, and don't forget to hit the notification bell and like this video so that you don't miss any future videos about luxury living right here in the triangle. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.